Another one, I did a weekend update with Downey where we were reviewing a William F. Buckley book at the time, and it all, it amounted to us basically making fart sounds as punctuations.
I'm Colby Olson. We're welcoming in Anthony Michael Hall to the Den today. Many of you will know him from his iconic 80s performances, such as in National Lampoon's Vacation, The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, and Weird Science. But he also has a large role in the upcoming season of Reacher, Season 3, which comes out on February 20th. He plays a character named Zachary Beck, who is described as a formidable, successful businessman, as well as a widow and a single father of a 20-year-old son, Richard. Zachary owns a rug import company that Reacher and his associates believe is covering for a more nefarious operation. Anthony Michael Hall, Mike, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks.
Very excited for the Season 3 of Reacher.
Thanks. As
am I.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to start it off and just see, what are you most excited for audiences to experience this season? And also, what are you most excited for audiences to experience about your character this season?
I appreciate it. Well, this is a great show. I started watching it in the first season long before I knew I was going to be a part of it, and I had a great time doing it. It's a really great role. It's based on the Lee Child series of books, which I had not been aware of. I mean, I knew about the Reacher films with Cruise, but this particular season is based on Persuader, which I learned is a type of gun. I'm a big gun guy, and it's a really, like, one of the most favorite and beloved of all of Lee Child's books of the Reacher series. The role is incredible. Played, as you said, you set it up beautifully. Yeah, Zachary Beck, on the surface, he has a company called Bizarre Bazaar, and he's a rug importer. Big quotes around that. And then what we realize, as you said, there's a much bigger, more nefarious operation, a criminal operation going on. So this guy's, he's living like the Great Gatsby. I mean, he's got this incredible mansion and a whole team of guys. And what you realize is that there's a criminal network that he's tied to, that he is part of. And then, as you mentioned, the Richard character, I have a 20-year-old son, and this is very true to the book, who Zachary is very much estranged from, so he didn't really have a relationship with him. So it's a really dynamic role, a guy who's under the gun, literally. And then also this relationship, the sort of B storyline, is his relationship with his son. It's interesting, I happened to have my first child last year, and I have a 20-month-old son. Here I am at 56. So that gave me a real new appreciation. It gave me a grounding for the character, because now I knew what it felt like to be a parent, right? I just think in terms of the role and the arc of that character and what I had to do was really a lot of fun. It gave me a lot of rich material to work with, and Nick Santorum, our showrunner, did a great job with this, and he's a very successful guy. He was kind enough to kind of tee this up for me. I'm just happy to be working for Amazon. I did Bosch right before this, Bosch Legacy. That was another great show based on a book series by Michael Connelly. So it's great to be back working with them. We shot the season last year in Toronto, and because of the actor strike, we started last summer, and then we had kind of a 4-month break, and then we resumed in the fall, and then we wound up shooting till almost last summer. So it was a season that took almost a year to shoot, but well worth it. And there's such top-notch people on the show. I mean, great actors, great crew. I never separated. It was just like one crew from my perspective, and really great people. So when you're working with pros on a hit show, it's that much more enjoyable because you can really dig in and do your own work, and yet that support system is there. It was great.
You say you're not a gun guy, but should we expect any gunplay, any combat scenes from you in this season?
Well, it's interesting, because as a villainous character in this piece, there's sort of a triumvirate of us. It's Brian T. and Olivia Richters, he's literally a giant. He's from Holland. And so basically we represent this operation that unfolds as Reacher's embedded with the DEA. He's investigating this, and he's kind of playing both sides as a kind of double agent in a sense. What's interesting is my character, you think he's the capo, the big boss, and then later in the season some other surprises are revealed. And it was great, and I really got along with everybody I worked with. I really enjoyed working with Brian T. He's a fine actor, and everybody. Alan Richardson was a lot of fun to work with too. It was all good, man.
Been a big fan of Alan Richardson since going back to Blue Mountain State, and it's amazing to see how his career's progressed, and you guys kind of meeting up is amazing. What was working with him like?
He's cool. He's very serious-minded. He takes his work seriously, and I can appreciate that. I also noticed too, because I had a series years ago called The Dead Zone, about 20-something years ago. And when you're number one on the call sheet, you don't really get a day off. You really have to be vested, and also as a leadership position, you have to really work with integrity and respect for the process and everybody you're working with. And I saw those similar qualities in Alan. I could see that, and he's very much technically aware too of the process and camera work and all that. So I found him to be a very intelligent guy, very focused guy, and he was cool to work with. Yeah.
So you were out here in New York for SNL's 50th anniversary. Man. So we're going way back here.
Yeah.
So how was your experience being back there, and also to go along with that, what was it like walking into SNL on your first day so long ago?
Colby, I'll tell you, it was a great question. I mean, I was 40 years ago. I was in the 11th season. It was a very pivotal season for Lorne Michaels because what happened was he created the series in 1975. He left after 5 years, and then he came back in what was our 11th season. You know, at that time, I think we got a lot of heat from the critics, and it was a very pivotal season. And, you know, I took part in the documentary series that Peacock released, and that was a pleasure. And then, you know, just doing that and reflecting on it, it's kind of surreal to me. I mean, I'm 56 years old. I started in this industry when I was 8 years old in 1976. So this is my 49th year in the business. I worked for Steve Allen all those years ago. But when I did SNL, I tell you, it was just a dream come true because it meant so much to me as a kid. I would always watch the show and the original cast, and I had to stay up late in the 70s. I mean, I was like a little kid, you know. But my heroes were all those people, you know, and I loved them. So to be a part of it was incredible. And I think because of all the time that went by and it getting so much, you know, flack from the critics, I kind of blocked it out. And when I did the show, I never watched the episodes because I was a kid, man. I was just trying to get through each week and figure out, you know, where to be and how my job was and what it needed from me. So all these years later, it's amazing. I feel much lighter about it because that's the fun of the show. Everybody loves it week to week, and everybody's judgments or assessments of it is part of the fun of watching it. But I'm really proud of it, you know, to be a part of that tradition and to be called upon by Lorne and to have worked for NBC all those years ago. It's very meaningful. You know, I took a different direction in my career, Cole, because I became an actor. But I love doing a comedy, and I love comedians, and you know that whole environment. I learned a lot. There's a great line, I love it. It was actually one of Bob Dylan's lines. He said, "The greatest success is failure, and failure is no success at all." So truly, as we go through life, I think we really all do learn more from our failures. You know, when you're successful, sometimes you get clouded and you lose appreciation for things. But with this, it was just incredible to be a part of. You know, so it was great to take part of these events and to take my wife and to meet all these great people, you know.
I obviously did a deep dive trying to dig up any sketches I could. It's harder, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. It was very hard to dig up some old sketches.
Right.
Is there anything that, you know, sticks out in your mind of old sketches that you're still, you know, excited about?
Yeah, well, I remember I did this thing with Damon Wayans. It was called Two Joneses, and you know, it wouldn't fly today. It was kind of, you know, edgy material, but we were almost like two junkies, like trying to sell. There used to be this store in New York called Crazy Eddie. They would sell tech products and stuff. So it was kind of a spin on that, and it was really funny. And it was fun going back and looking at that. Another one, I did a weekend update with Downey where we were reviewing a William F. Buckley book at the time, and it all, you know, it amounted to us basically making fart sounds as punctuation to
It's the only one I could find.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't, you know, it was not a great season, but again, you learn so much in that process, and to be a part of it, I mean, it's just incredible. Just being back in 30 Rock and taking part in these festivities this weekend, it was such an honor. You know, it was really great, and introducing my wife to people, and I got to talk with Will Ferrell and Adam Sandler, and you know, guys that I'm big fans of. Jack Nicholson was there, who I met numerous times as a kid, and so many people, you know, and more recent casts, and so many great men and women have really soared in that environment on that show, and it led to their great careers. Yeah, I mean, just look back with fondness and appreciation. An attitude of gratitude is always key for me.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So kind of going along with your career progression, you know, here at Den of Geek, we're very connected to Marvel.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to take a second and like imagine like we were in kind of your multiverse. And, you know, you've spoken about declining the role of Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
So is there any one opportunity that you've passed up on that maybe you wish you had accepted, or vice versa, that a role that you did accept that maybe, you know, could have gone differently? Is there one moment in your career?
Well, you know, it's interesting because you know, at the time after I did that trilogy of films with John Hughes way back in the 80s, he had written Pretty in Pink. He opted not to direct it. It was directed by a man named Howie Deutsch. And then he actually wrote Ferris Bueller for me. And at the time, I think I was trying to sort of individuate in a way and go my own way and try something else. And I also felt, I think, because I was so young, the weight of being typecast and all that was kind of freaking me out a little bit. So I went in another direction, and it led to those films, him hiring other actors. So that's actually the truth of that story. I mean, it was written for me, but I've lived long enough, Colby, you know how it is. You got to wish everybody success in life. So, you know, running into Matthew Broderick, that was meant for him. I've met John Cryer. He's a great guy, you know. So, look, I wouldn't be here without John Hughes. That's pretty evident. You know, I love that great quote. I guess it was like Isaac Newton or somebody who said, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, right? We all were mentored by people and earlier in our careers. And for me in my life, it was absolutely John Hughes and Lorne Michaels and Matty Simmons, the creator of Lampoon, and Harold Ramis. You know, people that saw a spark in me as a kid, long before it was a career. I knew what the hell I'd be doing all these years later. So again, just grateful, you know.
Moving on to a little bit of Breakfast Club, which,
Sure.
you know, you were here for SNL 50, but
Yeah.
it was the 40th anniversary of Breakfast Club, you know, just a few days ago.
A couple of years ago, we had the 40th for Vacation, and then, you know, I think Weird Science turned 40. I had movies that are 40 years plus. I feel like, what was that old great George Burns joke? It's good to be here. It's good to be anywhere at my age. Not that I'm that old, but I feel like it's surreal, you know. You feel older than you are when you look back, and again, you can reflect and But, there was kind of like, especially when I was doing the SNL doc, I had never watched the SNL episodes, and I was shooting a big show that's forthcoming overseas in Ireland, and I actually watched the episodes, and it felt like the last 10 minutes of It's a Wonderful Life. By that I mean there was no Clarence the Angel there, but I was just seeing my life anew again, and I really saw the episodes for the first time, and I was just amazed. I was just reflecting on all these great people that I got to be, to share the stage with and to meet, and heroes of mine, musicians like Stevie Ray Vaughan, or I was chatting with Tom Hanks the other night. I worked with him. All these people, Madonna back in the day, it was very much a dream, working on that show.
I think the coolest thing is, I'm a 25-year-old that was born long after these movies were made, and they stand the test of time. Like me in my teen years, a lot of me and my peers are watching and experiencing a movie like The Breakfast Club, and like that has a big impact on us. How does that feel for you, knowing that these movies do stand the test of time and are going to have a huge impact on generations to come?
That's really sweet, Colby. I appreciate that. Look, I've had a long time to reflect on that fact too, and again, I think it's a testament to John Hughes' God-given talent. He was such a good writer. He was so funny. The scripts were great, but he also let us try things, and he was very collaborative and very cool about all that. And a film like The Breakfast Club, we had no idea making that film 40 years ago. It was like, we felt like we were filming a play, So the fact that over time it's something that's really kind of entrenched in people's hearts. My theory about that film, it's almost like group therapy in a way, and it's evolved into quite a cool kind of anti-bullying message. Because when people watch that film, I think it's like subconscious or unconscious, but they're like, oh, that reminds me of me, or I was this character, or a combination of people. So that film in particular is amazing to me, because when I look back, I was only 16 and John Hughes was only 36 at the time. So the fact that he wrote something that was so meaningful and that has lasted for decades is really special. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Is there anything that you've noticed, coming up and making these movies in the 80s and, being on shows like Reacher now, is there anything that really sticks out to you about the film or TV making process and how it's evolved and changed over, the last 40 years?
Great question. Whether it's film or TV, and now in this new century, it's content and streaming, very similar in many regards. You're working 12 to 14-hour days, so there's a lot of long hours. You're working in groups, with a lot of people. I think the biggest change is technology. The fact that cameras and digital cameras and even lights have changed, and that's transformed the business. It's made it more mobile, and obviously technology has put everything in our hands, right? Like mobile devices, people make films on their cameras. So from that aspect, it's changed a lot. I think that's very interesting. And just how it's evolved. When I was growing up, there were like 3 or 4 networks, and then cable came along. We're like, wow, we got 50 channels, and now we have 500 channels, and then my wife and I do what a lot of couples or people do, which is we're scrolling for a half hour trying to figure out what to watch, because there's so many options. So no, it's been very interesting from that standpoint to see the arc and the development of our industry. But from a production standpoint, Colby, I think it's all the same, because quite honestly, the hours are very similar, and if you're doing, let's say, an independent film, you might shoot it in 3 or 4 weeks. When I worked on Reacher, it's incredible because the new model seems to be, sort of 8-episode seasons, and with a big hit like this, they set up for 6 or 8 months. So it's like you feel like you're doing a big studio blockbuster, but in fact, you're working for a big conglomerate, like obviously in this case, Amazon. So yeah, it's interesting. But from a work standpoint, yeah, the hours are kind of the same, but I think a lot of other things have changed, of course, yeah.
It is crazy the sheer number of movies and TV shows that you've been a part of over your career, and you actually have over 100 acting credits on IMDb. We were just wondering, are there any hidden gems in your catalog that you would like, viewers to revisit, or stuff that you're just personally really proud of?
Great question, Colby. Yeah, you know what? I did 61 was one that comes to mind. I did a movie in 1999 with Billy Crystal, who is a legend. I loved working with and for him. And I played, that's about the 1961 home run race between Maris and Mickey Mantle, as you know. And I played Whitey Ford, which was an honor. Let me see, in more recent years, about 10 years ago, I made a film with Brad Pitt called War Machine. I'm very proud of. It's a very interesting film based on a book by a guy named Michael Hastings, who's not with us any longer. And that had been optioned by Brad's company, Plan B. So working with Brad was really a great experience. And from that, seeing someone that I admired, like Ben Kingsley on the set, to be able to go to a set and watch someone like him work was great. In recent years, I had a lot of fun on the Goldbergs, making fun of the whole period. So that was a blast. But those are some highlighted ones, I would say.
Finally, beyond Reacher Season 3, is there anything else on the horizon for you that you're excited about?
Well, I have a production company which I started, quietly a couple of years back, and we produced 2 films, 2 independent films. One called The Class, which was sort of a modern day spin on The Breakfast Club. It was written by a guy named Nick Solozzi, who was out of Chicago. So I produced that film, and that wound up on Amazon and a lot of other streamers. And then we just produced a film that was released earlier this year. It's also on Apple and a lot of the streaming platforms, and it's called Roswell Delirium. And what I've done is I've aligned with some filmmakers that I love and respect, independent guys, and developed the projects and co-produced those. So my hope is moving forward to produce more projects, to get behind the camera, start directing. I have a couple of things that I want to do and that I'm developing. So yeah, I just want to expand the company and then just continue to work with great people, because as you know, it's always about the company you keep. It's better to be like for example, when I did The Dark Knight years ago, great lesson in learning how to be a small fish in a big pond, to work with great people, again, Gary Oldman, Christopher Nolan. So I've learned humility, and I've learned to adapt. And an actor's life is interesting. You have to really be committed, like being a musician, or even an athlete. You never know where you're going to wind up. You just have to stay dedicated, and even when you can't see the stairs or you don't know your next move, you just got to keep pushing forward. So my career has certainly taught me that, to be resilient, to press on no matter what. I'm grateful for all that, and thanks for noticing. Yeah, over 100 credits is amazing. Again, it's just a privilege, and I'm grateful that I had a thick skin and a hard enough head to endure show business this long.
Yeah, I'll let you leave any last words with the audience, but really appreciate you coming out.
Likewise. Thank you, Colby. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, and I hope everybody enjoys season 3 of Reacher. It's a banger. It turned out great. I haven't seen all the episodes, but we did a screening last night, and the first one that's a great indication. And Nick Santora told me personally he's very happy with this season. So I think fans of the show that find it online and are streaming it apparently in 240 countries, I think they're going to be really happy with this season, which is great. So just grateful, and just keep pressing on.
Amazing. Thank you.
Pleasure,
Thank you.
Man. Thanks a lot.
Because you hate the big, the powerful, who think they can get away with things. So you make sure they don't.
You just figured that out?